On June 23, 1609, an English ship carrying colonists to Virginia encountered a storm that sent it crashing into an ocean reef. The ship, named the Sea Venture, was about 600 miles off the coast of North Carolina. But the reefs that they hit were not just any reefs. They were the reefs surrounding Bermuda. The 150 people who made it to shore safely became Bermuda's first settlers. Wasn't where they intended to end up, but in many ways, it was better. The islands of Bermuda are the result of a volcanic eruption that took place about 70 million years ago. It sent up a 3-mile-high needle of rock that topped out just below the surface of the water. The rock was in the middle of the Gulf Stream, which comes up from the Caribbean and keeps the waters warm throughout the year. The warm water attracted coral life. And over the centuries, the rock was covered with the compressed shells that formed the 250-foot thick limestone cap that is now Bermuda. The pinkness of the shells produced Bermuda's famous pink beaches. Bermuda is a member of the British Commonwealth, but England is 3,500 miles away. The United States, a mere 600. Bermuda looks to England for its culture, but its biggest trading partner is the United States. And even today, its currency, the Bermuda dollar, is on a par and used interchangeably with the US dollar. Bermuda was founded by Europeans, but 60% of its present population descended from African slaves. Diverse elements, but somehow Bermuda has been able to blend them together. And in many ways, they've done a better job than most nations faced with similar histories. The net result is one of the most beautiful, interesting, and hospitable resorts in the world. The capital city of Bermuda is Hamilton. Hamilton has plenty of taxis and the amount of truck traffic you'd expect for a town with 2,000 inhabitants, but not many cars. Bermuda actually has a long history of opposing automobiles. The government only allowed them in after the Second World War. And even today, each family is limited to 1 car per resident, and the maximum speed is 20 miles per hour. As a result, the primary mode of transportation is the motor scooter. And that's true for many tourists as well as residents. It's biker time. Motor scooters are easy to rent. Okay.
Afternoon, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Everyone gets an introductory lesson and a helmet that must be worn.
Does it fit okay?
Perfect. All right.
First things first here, push the bike forward to take it off the kickstand.
Push the bike forward to take it off the kickstand.
Right.
Right.
Step down, lift back, put it back on.
That's it?
I
can do this.
Yeah, there's more to it though.
Oh.
Hold on. To start the bike, key in the ignition, turn it to the right. Squeeze both brakes. Headlights are over here, high and low beam. Turn signals. Remember, you do have to cancel them by pushing that in.
You have to cancel by turning it off.
Correct.
I like the horn.
That's just the Bermuda greeting.
Really good.
If you hear everybody honking at you, they're just saying hi.
All right.
We drive on the left here. That's probably the most important thing for you to remember.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reminder that Bermudian drivers are very polite, and you are expected to follow suit. Hamilton contains the island's major shopping area, which is Front Street West. Runs along the harbor and consists of a series of 3-story buildings filled with shops and restaurants.
Hey Mike, think honeymoon.
These are the Royal Naval Dockyards of Bermuda, a huge military fortress that was built by the British Navy in the late 1700s, and for good reason. When the United States won the War of Independence against England, the British Navy lost its ports along the east coast of North America. The young American Navy was quite aggressive, and England began to feel insecure about its position as ruler of the seas. This fort made them feel a little more confident about their situation.
My name is Brian Darby. I am the Admiral of Dockyard, and I represent a man called Admiral Richard Coburn. Basically, you're looking at a Victorian dockyard. It's only 200 years old. It was built by convicts. Sadly, we had to bring 8,000 convicts out from England, and they turned this fortress into what was called the Gibraltar of the West. And the reason for it was because Britain was losing control of the world to America. So if you'll follow me this way. This building here is a warehouse, but the top corner there is in fact the Dockyard Church. They forgot to put a church in the plans when they built it and found a very strong demand for a church around about 1850. So they gave them the top half of this building and they turned it into a Victorian church with about capacity for about 600 people. When 1938 came around, many years later, my father, my real father, was sent out from England to be the chaplain of the dockyard and run this church. And they turned this into the only interdenominational church in the history of the British Navy. Sounds nice to us, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it was against orders. So my dad was cashiered and sent back to England in disgrace. But he'd had the good sense to have me born before he did that. And many, many years later, the Queen of England gave him the OBE, which is the Order of the British Empire, or Other Buggers' Efforts, I think they call it. Anyhow, he was quite pleased to get it, but he didn't know why until they sent him his papers from his Navy days, and across the Bermuda page, someone had written in ink, "When this chap retires, give him a gong for what he did for the young men." So, thank you, Dad. These buildings here were built by the Navy for their officers. As you may see, small rooms, no ventilation, roofs made of lead. But the lead on the roof was dynamite. We drink the water off our roofs, and that was dumb. But they never thought to ask. I don't know what it is about the British. This is called the four-faced liar. I don't have to tell you why, do I? It never tells the right time, never. And there's my ship. Come and look at this beautiful boat. I give you the Spirit of Bermuda. What a lovely name for a ship. If you look at those masts, they had a rig called the Bermuda rig. All the other ships of the day had square riggers. They were tall ships. We invented the Bermuda rig, and that's a sloop rig, and it goes much, much faster. So put 35 guns on a small boat like that, and you're quite a force to be reckoned with. This way, please. This is called a sheer leg crane. We had to have a crane in the dockyards. Out in the mail came these two sockets, and they said, now you get 110-foot length of Canadian spruce, and you stick them in the holes, bring it up to the top, put a rope on top with lovely winches and stays and what have you. When your ship comes in, you lower this enormous great structure over the ship, and you pluck out the guns and the cargo and the masts at will. Wonderful in theory. In practice, it weighed 43 tons. And sometimes the weight of the cargo overwhelmed the strength of the winch. It's the only crane in history to have sunk 3 warships. Straight through the bottom. So they took it away. Isn't that sad? Sad. So you're in a very interesting country, a very interesting island, and the most interesting spot in the world is Bermuda. The dockyard is the #1 tourist attraction, and I'm very pleased you're here today. Thank you very much indeed.
St. George's was the original capital of Bermuda and the second English town established in the New World. And much of its old English atmosphere survives. The local church, St. Peter's, is the oldest Anglican church in continuous use in the Western Hemisphere. Across the road is the State House, which is the oldest building in Bermuda. Dates back to 1620. The Bermuda Perfumery was founded in 1928, when the gardens were coming into their own and traditions were being established. To this day, each bottle continues to be filled by the dedicated staff. They manufacture perfumes with the best ingredients from around the world. The reefs outside the harbor of St. George's always made the approach rather treacherous. And as ships got bigger, their problem became more pronounced. In 1815, the government of Bermuda decided to move its capital from St. George's to Hamilton, which had a better harbor. As a result, things in St. George's got a lot quieter, and that's one of the reasons they've been able to hold on to so much of their historic architecture. Bermuda architecture is one of the most interesting aspects of the community. The buildings are constructed with a design that is unique to these islands. It is a response to the climate and the building materials that are available in the middle of the Atlantic. Vince Kahn is a Bermuda taxi guide with a special interest in the local architecture.
The architecture in Bermuda is very unique. The homes, they're very solid. There are no frame homes. They're made out of Bermuda stone or concrete block in the modern day. And we need that type of structure to support our roofs, which we depend on rainwater from our roofs. The roofs are made out of Bermuda stone. It's cut into a slate. It's about 16 inches long and about a foot square and about an inch thick. And it's laid similar to the way you lay your shingles in America. The roofs are painted with a lime wash, which is a lime powder you mix with water and it forms like a latex paint. That helps to keep the water purified. There's a gutter incorporated into the roof, and it's on a 10 to 30 degree angle. And the rainwater is caught from the roofs and goes down into the tank, and a pressurized pump system pumps it back through the house. Every tank has a trapdoor, and the trapdoor by law must be on the exterior of the house. And of course, the fire department reserve the right of putting their hose in any tank. They will replenish the water they take out. So you don't need hydrants. Bermuda's noted for its pastel colors. In the old day, that I can remember, you had two colors. You had brick dust, and you mixed the brick dust with lime, which was white, and you got a pink. So you'll see multitudes of different shades of pink. And the blue came from the old days. You used to put bluing in your white clothes to whiten your clothes. So you used to crush that. It used to be a blue cube. You used to crush it and mix it with the lime wash, and you got blue, pale blues. So here we are in the modern day with computerized paint mixing. You got a variety of other colors.
The Bermuda Natural History Society was founded in 1901 with specific instructions to find out what was happening in the waters around Bermuda. Since then, it has expanded into the Bermuda Aquarium, Natural History Museum, and Zoo.
I think you like it. It's kind of put on a show.
Great. Today, it's home to over 100 species of fish, plus an interesting selection of golden lion tamarin monkeys, scarlet ibis, giant tortoises, and children fascinated by the exhibits.
Blue fishes and the black fish, black one.
But it's one of those things where kids can walk across the stones.
Dr. Ian Walker is the curator of the Bermuda Aquarium and Zoo.
That's one of our golden lion tamarin monkeys. So we have 3 in this exhibit that run free, and they're very curious little monkeys, and they love to come up to visitors, but they're absolutely beautiful. And like I say, we have 3 in this exhibit. We have 2 males and 1 female.
Morning.
There we are. We have roseate spoonbill.
Spoonbill.
Spoonbill. Name obviously from the shape of their beak. They'll stick their bill in the water and
Suck up everything they can.
That's right. This is our 148,000-gallon North Rock exhibit tank, and it's designed to exhibit the most northerly coral reef system in the world, which is the North Rock, about 8 miles north of here. But we have a whole bunch of different fish in the tank, and one of our favorites is Darth Vader, the black grouper, who loves to come over and be petted. Have you ever petted a grouper?
No.
Would you like to?
No.
This is actually a natural behavior for them, not actually necessarily coming up to humans, but posturing like this to be cleaned. So he'll come up, and ordinarily on the reef, fish like this would go into a sea frond or something like that, and they would just posture, which would indicate that the other fish were safe to approach them, and pick little bits of skin, you name it, off them, give them a good cleaning. So
It's a spa treatment.
exactly.
Darth, see you around. The two great spectator sports in Bermuda are soccer and cricket. Soccer's pretty easy to follow. You kick the ball or butt it with your head and try to get it into a netted area at the end of the field, and the opposing team tries to stop you. Cricket, on the other hand, is very British and a little complicated, and I'll have to get back to you on that. The four primary participatory sports are golf, tennis, kite flying, and sailing. Bermuda has more golf courses per square mile than any other country. And the first time the PGA Grand Slam of Golf was held outside of the United States, it was held at the Mid-Ocean Golf Club in Bermuda. The beauty of the Tucker Point Club is a perfect example of why golf is so popular. Tennis is a big deal in Bermuda, too. There are over 400 courts on the island. Kites are made and flown throughout the year, and there are experts available who will help you build a kite and teach you or reacquaint you with the proper techniques. Competitive sailing got started in Bermuda during the early 1800s, when workboats were refitted for racing and British naval officers took up the sport. The boat used to train the youngest sailors is called an optimist. It was designed in 1947 for a men's club called the Optimists. They wanted to start the sailing equivalent of a child soapbox derby. Today, 150,000 young sailors train on Optimists, and the training appears to work. 70% of the sailors who have won gold medals in the Olympics started out in an Optimist. Every 2 years, in the middle of June, over 180 sailboats gather together in Newport, Rhode Island, to take part in the Newport Bermuda race.
Help them out.
For over 100 years, sailboats have assembled here to begin a race that takes them across 635 miles of ocean. Ocean known for challenging weather, strong currents, and the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is a series of powerful currents that act almost like a separate river in the middle of the ocean. It has the power to decide where your boat will be going without prior consultation with your crew.
Hard on the wind for one more length and then we're clear.
The fleet is divided into 5 divisions to allow boats of various sizes and designs to compete fairly in what is one of the world's most famous and aggressive ocean races. The race ends in Bermuda with the kind of celebration that is traditional for Bermudians.
Good race, buddy. Good race.
Nice job.
During the 1600s, the primary source of great wealth to plantation owners in the Caribbean was sugar. A byproduct of refining sugar was molasses, and a byproduct of processing molasses was rum. In Bermuda, the Gosling family has been making rum since 1863. The first Gosling arrived in Bermuda in much the same way as the original settlers. He was headed to the United States, and weather forced the ship into Bermuda. And like the first settlers 200 years before, he decided to stay. Today, Gosling's is the largest exporter of a Bermuda-made product. Bermuda has hundreds of restaurants catering to many different tastes. One is the Sunday morning breakfast specialty of codfish and potatoes, served with boiled egg, sautéed onions, tomato sauce with more onions, a johnny cake, a banana, a slice of avocado, and a piece of cassava pie. It's a specialty. There are restaurants that are known for their local dishes like Bermuda fish chowder, topped with sherry pepper sauce and black rum. There are chefs that prepare the classic recipes of France, like the traditional onion soup. There are bistros doing an excellent job with seafood, including spiny lobster. There are restaurants that cater primarily to locals and can be fun to visit. And finally, there are British-inspired pubs serving traditional pub grub of bangers and mash. And of course, you must stop in for high tea. Afternoon tea got started in Britain during the 1840s when the 7th Duchess of Bedford, who also held the title of Lady of the Bedchamber, decided that she was getting hungry between lunch and dinner and wanted to have a little snack, which she took secretly in her bedchamber and consisted of tea and some little bread and butter sandwiches. Eventually, her friends heard about it, and it turned into an afternoon tea party, which became common amongst the British all over the world. In 1883, Princess Louise, who was the daughter of England's Queen Victoria and the wife of the Governor General of Canada, spent her winter holiday in Bermuda. Putting aside the question of why a princess needs a holiday in the first place, her visit was covered by all the socially important magazines and newspapers in England, Canada, and the United States. Suddenly, Bermuda was fashionable, and local developers began developing a suitable hotel. On January 1st, 1885, just 2 years after the visit by Princess Louise, the Fairmont Hamilton Princess welcomed its first guests. The idea was to have a hotel in Bermuda that was so luxurious that it would attract people who normally vacationed in Palm Beach. The hotel was the place. Flattering gas lights in each room, 5-inch mirrors on the dressing tables, so you could see how good you looked in the flattering gas lights. Hot and cold running water in the bathrooms. Amazing stuff for the time. Cruise ships began bringing in guests from the east coast of the United States, and the hotel became famous. These days, the Fairmont Hamilton Princess is in better shape than ever. It overlooks Hamilton Harbor and remains a center for social and business gatherings. For a number of years, the Hamilton Princess has had a younger sibling, the Fairmont Southampton. The Southampton sits on top of one of the highest hills in Bermuda. Each guest room has its own private balcony, and most have panoramic views of the island. It has its own 18-hole executive par 3 golf course. Spas are a big deal in Bermuda, and Southampton's Willow Stream Spa is a perfect example. It has 31,000 square feet of facilities, including 15 private treatment rooms, 3 lounge areas, a private indoor pool, and separate men's and women's saunas. There's a heated indoor pool with a waterfall and gardens, and 2 outdoor jacuzzis on a sun deck overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The 2 hotels run as a team. All the facilities at each hotel are available to guests no matter which hotel they are staying at. And there's a private ferry that takes you between the 2 properties. Princess Louise would have loved it. Today, tourism is responsible for over half of Bermuda's income, which makes it an essential part of an economy that imports almost everything. The government is constantly active in managing Bermuda tourism, and its primary interest is in quality rather than quantity. Over 40% of Bermuda's tourists are repeat visitors, and and the government wants to keep it that way. That's Travels and Traditions in Bermuda. I'm Burt Wolf.
You can watch this program and link to hundreds of other Burt Wolf programs free at burtwolf.com. There's information on how to tour the same places, plus Burt's slightly irreverent take on history and culture. It's all at burtwolf.com.
Allowed them in after the Second World War. And even today, each family is limited to 1 car per resident, and the maximum speed is 20 miles per hour. As a result, the primary mode of transportation is the motor scooter. And that's true for many tourists as well as residents.
It's biker time.
Motor scooters are easy to rent.
Okay,
Afternoon, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, thanks. First of all,
Everyone gets an
here's your video
introductory
of
lesson and a helmet that must be worn.
Does it fit okay?
Perfect. All right.
First things first here, push the bike forward to take it off the kickstand.
Push
Okay.
the bike forward to take it off the kickstand. Right.
Step down, lift back, to put it back on.
That's it?
That's-
I can do this.
Yeah, there's more to it though.
Oh.
Hold on. To start the bike, key in the ignition, turn it to the right. Squeeze both brakes. Headlights are over here, high and low beam. Turn signals. Remember, you do have to cancel them by pushing that in.
You have to cancel.
Today, its currency, the Bermuda dollar, is on a par and used interchangeably with the US dollar. Bermuda was founded by Europeans, but 60% of its present population descended from African slaves. Diverse elements, but somehow Bermuda has been able to blend them together. And in many ways, they've done a better job than most nations faced with similar histories. The net result is one of the most beautiful, interesting, and hospitable resorts in the world. The capital city of Bermuda is Hamilton. Hamilton has plenty of taxis and the amount of truck traffic you'd expect for a town with 2,000 inhabitants, but not many cars. Bermuda actually has a long history of opposing automobiles. The government only allows On June 23, 1609, an English ship carrying colonists to Virginia encountered a storm that sent it crashing into an ocean reef. The ship, named the Sea Venture, was about 600 miles off the coast of North Carolina. But the reefs that they hit were not just any reefs. They were the reefs surrounding Bermuda.
150 people who made it to shore safely became Bermuda's first settlers. Wasn't where they intended to end up, but in many ways, it was better.
The islands of Bermuda are the result of a volcanic eruption that took place about 70 million years ago. It sent up a 3-mile-high needle of rock that topped out just below the surface of the water.
So by turning it off.
Correct.
I like the horn.
That's just the
Horn I can
Bermuda
do really
greeting.
good.
If you hear everybody honking at you, you're just saying hi.
Right?
We drive on the left here. That's probably the most important thing for you to remember.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reminder that Bermudian drivers are very polite, and you are expected to follow suit. Hamilton contains the island's major shopping area, which is Front Street West. It runs along the harbor and consists of a series of 3-story buildings filled with shops and restaurants.
Hey Mike, think honeymoon.
The rock was in the middle of the Gulf Stream, which comes up from the Caribbean and keeps the waters warm throughout the year. The warm water attracted coral life. And over the centuries, the rock was covered with the compressed shells that formed the 250-foot thick limestone cap that is now Bermuda. The pinkness of the shells produced Bermuda's famous pink beaches. Bermuda is a member of the British Commonwealth, but England is 3,500 miles away. The United States, a mere 600. Bermuda looks to England for its culture, but its biggest trading partner is the United States. And even